to do next. Now that we've got our 14 cable rows done, zoom out a bit more. Now we get to start on the tree. Now the tree I have kind of framed out. It's not going straight to the edge on any side. So first 5 rows are purl stitch. Then we will get into the chart. So now at this point what you need to do, now we are going to start using our marked pegs that we'd marked with the, now we're going to start paying attention to these pegs. So from here we will E-wrap to this peg, purl stitch all the way over to the last one here, then E-wrap these. Because you can see this should be enough for 1, 2 cables, and on this side 1, 2 cables. So we'll have 2 cables running up both sides of the tree. Now I'll go ahead and get over to where you purl and show you what to do. Okay, well Figs, honey, you're gonna have to move. There we go. Okay. I did my 5 rows, which I'll show you what it looks like. You can see the purl stitch. It might help if I turn it this way. The purl stitch is a lot tighter, so that's what it's going to look like. I did the 5 rows, which that 5th row, okay, I'll show you here. That 5th row, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches because I did my last cable and I did 2 rows after that cable before I started the purl stitches. So this 7th row is actually the 5th row for this middle part. I've got my stitches, got the first 5 rows done of the purl stitch. Now the purl stitch is a lot tighter, so you got to kind of pull to really be able to see if you need to count your stitches. But your yarn should be coming back from the beginning here. Now that 5th row is actually the 7th row after a cable, because I did that last cable, I did 2 rows of E-wrap, then I started into the purl stitch for the graph part, which is from here to here on the loom. So from here to here it's purl stitched. These are still E-wrapped. Now I've got the stitches off to do my cables. What we got to go over now is how to read the PDF, the chart. Now there is some written directions, but this chart is really the best way to go about it, which I'll show you on here. We've got to here, so now we're going to be starting on the very bottom of the tree trunk and working our way up, and you can see that's a cable row. There's a cable there, and there's a cable there. Alright, so first of all, here's the chart. This isn't the finished chart. The chart in the PDF is going to be a little different because there's going to be a few corrections I'll make along the way. But what I did basically was I graphed out what the finished product of the tree will look like. And then I used the slashes to let you know where you're moving stitches. These stitches with the pegs with the blocks with the slashes on them, if the slash is going that way, you're moving the stitch in that direction. If the slash is going this way, you're moving the stitch in this direction. So we'll look down here at the bottom. So for your first row, what you'll do, this chart is just showing from here to here. This is from peg 1 to, what's the last peg? Peg 40 or 41. From peg 1 like to peg 40 over here, or 41. These first 5 that are marked off and these last 5, you do nothing but purl stitch for the entire tree pattern. After the tree, when you're done with the tree, then we'll get back into doing this pattern to finish it up. But you ignore, these are just purl stitched. That's why they're separated out. And it also gives you, like, this is peg 1 when you're counting. So what you'll do, the blocks right here that are colored in, that is marking the rows that you're doing your cables on the outside of the tree spot. So your background cables is what I'll call those. That's marked off in the chart. The yellow rows are marking off the tree trunk cables, like the cables right here on the trunk of the tree itself. I just did the collars because it's still marked in the pattern, which basically what this means is these 3 stitches will be going in front of these 3. So, this is the exact same, the 6 stitch cable as you've been doing in the background. That's just how it's rowed up for this. These are E-wraps. These will be E-wraps too, but these stitches you'll take off and you'll move these 3 stitches over and then place those stitches back on just like you were doing. For this graph, the whole background is purl stitched. If the block is empty and there's no circle in it or slash, then that block will be purl stitched. And you can see I had to correct some down here. Like for this, row 1, the yarn is coming from this direction, this side. You're working this way. You're going to purl stitch the first 15 pegs, pegs 16 through 25. You will E-wrap, which peg 20 and 21 are marked out. See how they're yellow here? That's the exact center, and that's what's marked right here is peg 20 and 21. These 2 just mark out the boundaries for the main part of the trunk, for like the 6 stitch cable part, just to give you a border. But what you'll do, your E-wraps, and you'll purl out, and you'll do whatever you need to do outside of the pattern. You know, you got a cable row that you'll be doing. Your next row, you're coming from this direction. And so peg 25 to 16, you will E-wrap and you'll finish out the row. For that 3rd row, what you're going to do is you will purl stitch to peg 15, sorry. Peg 16, you are going to E-wrap. 17 will be a purl stitch. And what you're going to do is you will take the loop from peg 17 off, put the loop from peg 16 on it, and then move 17 over. I will show you, I'm on row 3 of the tree, and I wanted to work this part of it with you just to explain a little better what to do. So we're at row 3, so we know the yarn started from this end and we're going this direction. So we purl stitch to peg 15, then we will E-wrap peg 16, purl stitch peg 17, E-wrap peg 18 through 23, then purl stitch 24, E-wrap 25. Let me see, I'll zoom in on this so you can see this better. Leave this in the background. That right here is where we're at. So I'm right here. This is peg 16. So this one, we E-wrap this peg, then we purl stitch this one, then we E-wrap the rest of these. Oh, E-wrap one more. E-wrap all those. That's these middle green ones. And then purl stitch one. E-wrap one. And then we get back into our purl stitches, which I'm just doing a couple to lock those in place, because I'm going to show you what we do. I can go ahead and knit those off because those are already done. Oops. Okay. This is where you might want a stitch marker. Let me move that because it's wanting to focus on that and not this. This was E-wrapped. This was purl stitched. So I'm going to take the stitch that was purl stitched off, put it on the loom, on the stitch holder. Peg 16 that was E-wrapped, I moved over. And now the peg that was purl stitched, I moved over. Anytime there is one of the slants, the slant always goes in front of the other stitch. So we will go ahead and do this side. This was the purl stitch. That was peg 23. Wait, no, sorry. Peg 24. I was looking at the wrong row. So peg 23, we're going to take off and move over. Or peg 25. And then peg, the original stitch from peg 24, we are putting on peg 25. I'll show you what you've just done. You see right here where the stitches are kind of going in? I'll show you what would happen if we didn't switch those stitches, because my first try at this tree went very bad. And this is red, and it's kind of hard to pick up detail with red. Got to get the lights off of it. Hold on a minute, I got to move my lighting. I don't think that helped any. Okay, here's my first try. But see how the top, you can't tell that's a tree. Because what I did was, for my graph, all of these were just E-wraps. I wasn't switching stitches or flipping them around or anything. But what you want is, you want everything to flow. You can see how the stitches just flow together. And that's because we're moving the stitches to do so. There we go. Okay, so I hope that made sense. Go ahead and work your pattern up to about row 25, because you're going to do another row of E-wrap, and you'll have another row where what we're doing is we're decreasing right now for the base of the trunk. So you get those done, and then this is just E-wraps and purls. You have a couple cable rows. After the second cable row, then I'll kind of help get you started with how to move some of these stitches around, just so that there's no confusion with any part of it. I'm at row 26 of the tree, which I'm on this end. It's going in this direction now. I wanted to show you something. You're going to E-wrap all of these, but this one, you're going to switch with this one. This one, you'll switch with that one. And I've got, move it, kitty cats. Okay. So, I'll go ahead and show you. Let me zoom this in. I already worked the stitches up to where I will be E-wrapping. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Which I'll show you on here. There's 8 stitches there. This row right here. I'm going to E-wrap these 8 stitches, and I'll show you how to switch them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, Figaro thinks the ball of yarn is a toy. I'm going to go ahead and purl just a couple stitches past it. Then I can go ahead and switch the stitches around. Where are we at? So these two need switched, but this one needs to be in front of this one. So we're going to take that second one, just pulling it off for a second, just hold it back there, move this one over, then take this stitch and put back on. Now if you're noticing the stitches are really tight to leave twisted and put on, if you need to like untwist the stitch to put it on the peg, that's fine, and it really doesn't make a big difference in the finished project. So these two, this was my last E-wrap one on this side. Because right now we are increasing part of the trunk because we're doing the limbs. So this is where the trunk is, so it's coming out. So this one, take that one off. Pick this one up, move over. Then take this one and oops, put on that peg. So again, I'll show you here. Here are the 8 ones, because when we're twisting this around, we're putting this in front, and it makes it look like the limb's going that way. So for all of these stitches, that's what you'll be doing. You just got to follow the way it says, like you'll be E-wrapping both of those. Up here, when I get to some of the empty pegs here, where you're switching a purl stitch with an E-wrap stitch, I'll show you how to do that. I am on row 40 of the pattern, which I'm going to pull this under, of the chart, I mean. You can see I'm starting from this end and going across. Now I've already done the row, and I E-wrapped where I needed to E-wrap, and I purled where I needed to purl. Now I'm going to show you some of the different techniques for switching the stitches. Now let's zoom out, let's look. So we did this one right here. We go across. These two are right here. Those I just knit off. They don't get switched, they don't get nothing. And then over here, hold this up because I'll make sure you can see. So those two, nothing happens to them, they just get knit off. The next spot's going to be this one. As you can see where my stickers kind of pulled up some of the ink, so ignore that. But this stitch needs to go in front of that one. They need to twist. So making sure I'm at the right place. Yep, because here are my center marks. So I will take this one off, move this one over, and move this one there. And of course there's none through this. We get them on the other side of the trunk. We got right here. This one is the one with the slant, and it slants that way, so this one needs to go in front. That one goes in front, and this one, oops, there we go. After that, we have two that I just knit off. Then these last two, I will switch. That one knits off, and this one knits off, but what you're going to see is there's only one stitch left. That's because right here, that's a purl stitch, but we are putting this stitch in front of that one. Now your purl stitches can be a lot tighter too, so when I try to knit as loose as I can, just because sometimes your tension can get very, very tight. Now with the purl stitches, you don't want to twist them. You want them to kind of stay the same if at all possible, just because that will kind of screw up the look a little bit. Now if you're twisted, your E-wraps, or it's a twisted knit stitch as one E-wrap actually is, if those stitches get untwisted, it's really not that big of a deal. But you can see this is where I'm at, and I think that kind of puts it to where I've showed you about all the different ways that I'm switching here. You just keep following the pattern and just keep switching your stitches until you get to your last one. After you're at your last one up here on row 62, do 5 rows of purl stitch like you did at the beginning. Like you did at the beginning here, do your 5 rows of purl stitch. And one thing I did, the chart with the pattern will be marked out differently. And this row right here is going to be yellow, and this row on the end here is going to be yellow, because that's that first peg right here with the marked peg for your edging, because it does run up that first peg just for a few stitches, But these 4 right here will never have anything other than purl stitches on them for the entire tree pattern. The same thing goes for this side. I just wanted to make that clear because I was editing the rest of the video and it was a little unclear of exactly how that goes. So finish out the tree pattern, do your 5 rows of purl stitch, then all you do is you get right back into this pattern.